Hi, I'm Dr. Gary Chapman, author of The 5 Love Languages, and great to be with you guys in this conference. The last 4 months have been things I've never experienced in my life. I don't know about you, but it's been very, very unique. In the middle of all this, I wrote a little book, about 100 pages, on 5 simple ways to strengthen your marriage when you're shut at home together. I want to share those with you today because even if you're not shut at home, the principles still apply. Number 1 is call a truce on verbal bombs. Some couples, this is the way of life. You're irresponsible just like your father. Put that phone down and listen to me. One lady said to me just recently, she said, Dr. Chapman, my husband called me lazy because I didn't put a plastic bag back in the trash can after I took the trash out. And I'm thinking, what's wrong with this guy? He should be thanking her for taking the trash out. If you have a good marriage, every once in a while, you still throw a verbal bomb. And you know what happens when you throw a bomb at your spouse? It explodes. And it hurts them emotionally, and it hurts the relationship. So what I'm saying is, if you want to have a better relationship, why don't we just sit down and say, honey, why don't we just call a truce on throwing verbal bombs? We're hurting each other. So maybe for the next 3 weeks, let's just try not to throw bombs at each other. The first week, you create a different atmosphere. And then maybe you could say, honey, the next couple of weeks, why don't we try this? Now that we're not throwing bombs, why don't we give each other a compliment rather than criticism? And let's see if that helps us. Now, I shared that idea with a man, and he said to me, Gary, I know that would be good. He said, but it doesn't come comfortable for me to say things like that to my wife. I don't know how to do that. I said, okay, here's your assignment. I want you to get you a gratitude notebook. I don't care what it looks like. You just put it at the top, gratitude notebook. And you put your wife's name. And this week, you write down 3 things you like about her. Okay, he said, I'll try. He comes back next week, and here are his 3 things. She's a good cook. She's a good mother. And she's a good school teacher. I said, that's good, man. And then I took his list and I wrote these sentences out beside of them. On the one for a good cook, honey, I know I haven't told you about this very often, but you're an excellent cook, and I really appreciate all the meals you prepare for us. And then I wrote beside the other one, Mary, I've been thinking about what a wonderful mother you are, and I just want to thank you for all that you do for our children. And beside the other one I wrote, how did your teaching go this week? I think the parents of the students that you teach must be grateful for you. Everything I hear is you're a great teacher. I wrote them out for him. I said, your assignment is to go home and read them twice a day, every day this week, and then come back. He came back and I said, okay, can you say them now without looking at your notes? And he did. It was haltingly, but he did. I said, here's your assignment. The next 3 weeks, each week you give her one of these, okay? Just walk up to her and say one of them. He came back at the end of 3 weeks. I said, how did it go, man? He said, Dr. Chapman, he said, it's just amazing what happened. He said, the last week when I gave her the 3rd one, she said to me, what's going on with you? I've never heard you give me so many compliments. I said, well, honey, I'm just trying to learn how to share with you how much I appreciate you. And she said, you are absolutely wonderful. I love you so much. He said, I hadn't heard that in a long time. You see, when we stop the compliments and we start giving expressions of gratitude, we change the whole emotional climate in a marriage. I challenge you to try it. Second suggestion, tear down the emotional walls. You know how walls get built in a relationship? 1 block at a time. Something happens, we're critical, or we do something or don't do something, and we hurt the other person. And if we don't deal with it, it sits there as an emotional barrier between the two of us. And then there's another event and another block in the wall and another and another. And some couples now have a long wall, high and thick. And even if you don't have a wall, from time to time, we do fail each other. So what I'm suggesting is this. Why don't you tear down whatever wall exists? How do you do that? By apologizing. And hopefully they'll forgive you. Now I know that most of us, when there's a problem in the relationship, in our mind, they're the problem. And so we say, why should I apologize? They're the problem. Well, are you perfect? I think most people agree we're not perfect. So why don't you deal with your part? One lady said, you know, my husband's 95% of the problem. I said, well, that only leaves 5% for you. So why don't you apologize for your 5% and just see what happens? You see, when you apologize for your part in the relationship, whether it's big or whether it's little, I can't guarantee you they'll immediately forgive you, but I can tell you this, they're going to walk away and they're going to be thinking, wow, this is different. They've been blaming me for years, and now they're apologizing. You see, your behavior can touch them emotionally. You try it. Now, apology alone does not restore the relationship. There has to be a response to the apology. And the most positive response is forgiveness. And forgiveness means I remove the barrier. I'm going to pardon you. Now our relationship can go forward. You see, it's not going forward as long as the wall is there. But if you're willing to tear down the wall, now let me just say this. Forgiveness is not a feeling. Maybe you don't feel like forgiving. Maybe you've been hurt so much you don't feel like forgiving. Forgiveness is not a feeling, it's a choice. It's a choice to lift and remove the barrier so that the relationship can go forward. And forgiveness does not destroy the memory nor the emotions. Even if you choose to forgive them, when the memory comes back, the emotions come back. What do you do with that? You remind yourself, okay, I'm remembering what happened. I'm feeling hurt again. But I forgave that. Now I'm going to do something good today. And you don't allow your emotions to control your behavior. You know, in our culture, we have exalted emotions. You hear people say, I've got to be true to my emotions. You follow your negative emotions, you will destroy any relationship. But you choose to go against negative emotions and do something positive, you build a relationship. Third suggestion, discover and speak your spouse's love language. Now, you didn't think I'd talk and not mention the love languages, did you? What I discovered years ago is that what makes one person feel loved doesn't make another person feel loved. And I discovered in my research that there's fundamentally 5 languages of love. If you've read the book, this is a review. If you haven't, it's an introduction, okay? Love language number 1, words of affirmation. We've been talking about that one already. Just using words to affirm the other person. You can use encouraging words. You know, honey, you're doing a great job with that. One guy said, you know, Dr. Chapman, during this pandemic, I just happened to pick up a sheet of paper on the desk and noticed my wife had written an article. And I read it and said, man, this thing is good. So I said to her, you know, honey, this is really good. Why don't you submit it to the local newspaper? They'll publish this thing. She said, really, you think so? And she did, and they published it. You see, it just took encouraging words. So think about your spouse's passion and give them encouraging words. So words of affirmation. A second love language is acts of service. Doing something for them that you know they would like for you to do. This may be washing dishes, vacuuming floors, cooking meals, walking the dog, mowing the grass, changing the baby's diaper, anything that you know they would like for you to do. Remember the old saying, actions speak louder than words. If this is their love language, it's true. They will speak louder than words. And then there is quality time. Giving them your undivided attention. I'm not talking about sitting on the couch watching television. Someone else has your attention. I'm talking about TV is off, computer is down, we're not answering the phone, we're giving each other undivided attention. Now, it doesn't have to always be sitting down. You can take a walk down the road together or go out and eat together. Or it's not necessarily even talking. It may be doing a project together, planting a garden in the front yard, a flower garden. The important thing is not the garden. It's that you're giving them your full attention to something they want to do. Quality time. Number 4 is gifts. It's universal to give gifts as an expression of love. The gift says, they were thinking about me. Look what they got from me. And the gift doesn't have to be expensive. You know, one guy told me just recently, he said, Doc Chapman, he said, I was taking a walk. During the pandemic, I was taking a walk, and I saw a bird feather, and I picked it up, and I took it home, and I said to her, you know, honey, I was walking today, and I found this bird feather, and it reminded me of you. You are the wind beneath my wings, girl, and I want you to have this as a reminder. Woo! It was a gift and words of affirmation. He hit a home run. And then there's physical touch. And this is holding hands and kissing and embracing and the whole sexual part of marriage, arm around the shoulder, putting your hand on their leg as you drive down the road. Just physical touch. And here's the basic concept. Out of those 5 languages, each of us has a primary love language. One of these speaks more deeply to us emotionally than the other 4. Now, we can receive love in all 5 languages, but one of them really communicates love to us. Seldom does a husband and wife have the same love language. So you want to learn her language, learn his language, and start speaking it on a regular basis, and you fill the love tank. You know, everybody agrees our deepest emotional need on the human level is the need to feel loved by the significant people in our lives. If you feel loved by your spouse, life is beautiful. If you don't feel love, life can look pretty dark. So I want to challenge you. If you want to learn each other's love language, you can go to 5lovelanguages.com, the number 5, 5lovelanguages.com. Take a free quiz. There's one for married couples, one for single adults, one for teenagers, one for children. Learn the love language of everyone in your family and make sure they know each other's love language. You will change the emotional climate, not only in the marriage, but in the whole family. Incidentally, this also works in other human relationships, okay? So, number 4 is learning the value of working as a team. You know, we all have to face this when we first get married. In fact, one of the things I do for couples before they get married, I say, make a list of all the things that will have to be done after you get married. Somebody's got to buy the groceries, somebody's got to cook, somebody's got to wash the dishes, vacuum the floor, clean the toilet, walk the dog. A whole bunch of things have to be done. Make a list of all those things, and then you take the list separately. And she puts beside her initials, besides the ones she thinks she will do, and he puts his initials beside the ones he thinks he will do. And then you come back and compare your list. And you might agree on half of them, maybe even more, but the others, he thought she would do it, and she thought he would do it. So we have to negotiate. We're on the same team, so we use team members to accomplish the things that need to be done. You know, in athletics, in sports, they don't all play the same role, but they all have the same objective. They want to win the game. Well, we want to have a winning marriage. So now, as I said, most couples have figured this out in the first 2 or 3 years of marriage. Then the pandemic comes. Everything has changed. The whole playing field is now changed. So it's time to rethink our roles. For example, here's a family, husband, wife, and 2 children. The plan they had before the pandemic was she would fix breakfast for the children, for the family, and then she went off to work. He would help the children get ready to go to work, and then he would drop them off as he went to work. It was working fine. Pandemic set in. The kids are at home now. They're not in school. Nobody has to take them to school. She is not a morning person by nature. She's pushing herself to get up and cook breakfast. So the first morning, she's sleeping in. And the husband's in the kitchen with the kids saying, "Where's Mama? Where's Mama?" Maybe it's time to rethink the role. He is a morning person. He's alive in the morning. So maybe he needs to say to her, "Honey, I just had this thought. Would it be helpful to you if during this time I fix breakfast for the kids and you could sleep in? Woo! I have an idea. That's going to be good for her. So maybe we need to change our role when things change in the family structure. So I would suggest that you might say to your spouse, honey, is there something that I could do that would make your life easier? And if it is, I'll guarantee you they'll tell you. If you ask, they'll tell you, and you can reassess. You know, we have different gifts, we have different abilities, we have different passions, but we're on the same team. So let's not be enemies, like opposing teams. Let's be on the same team, and let's work together to accomplish things that both of us would like to accomplish. And then the last idea that I discuss in the book is, what if we have a daily sit down and listen time? You know, typically we say, let's sit down and talk, which usually means, I've got something I want to tell you. No, we need to have a sit down and a listen time. We're not good listeners, most of us. So what if you have a sit down and listen time? It can be 15 minutes a day. And you say, honey, tell me some of the things you've been thinking today and what you've been feeling. Now, one lady said, well, we're in the house all day together. We see and know what each other's doing. I said, sure you do, but you don't know what they're thinking, and you don't know what they're feeling. So what if you just ask, honey, what have been some of your thoughts today? What have you been feeling today? And you listen to them, ask questions to clarify, and affirm them. You know, honey, I can see how you'd feel that way. Yeah, that makes sense to me. You know, and then they listen to you. It's staying emotionally connected with each other. And then, if you have conflicts, and every couple has conflicts, why don't we have once a week a daily sit down and listen to each other, and let's solve a conflict. Don't do two, just one a week, okay? Now by conflict, I mean the two of you disagree on something and you both feel strongly about it. See, many couples have never learned how to solve conflicts. Every conflict is an argument. In fact, my research indicates the average person in a conflict situation will listen to the other person 17 seconds before they interrupt and give their idea. Well, that's not right, and da-da-da, and da-da-da. And now we're enemies. Now we're fighting each other. Did you ever stop to think, if you win an argument with your spouse, they lost. It's no fun to live with a loser, so why would you create one? So, what I'm suggesting is that you sit down once a week, and you need to allow at least 30 minutes. It might take longer than that. And you say, okay, honey, I know we disagree on this. So, why don't you start, if you like, or I'll start, it doesn't matter. And you can take 5 minutes or 10 minutes, however long you need to take, and you tell me your perspective. I want to hear it again, what you think we should do and why you think we should do it. And so you let them tell you. And then you ask questions. Honey, is this what you're saying? I think I'm understanding it. Is this what you're saying? And is this what you're feeling? And once you've listened long enough, you listen empathetically. That is, you're not listening to shoot back. You're listening to try to understand what they're thinking, what they're feeling. And then you say to them, you know, honey, I can see how that makes sense. Now, let me share my side. And then you take time to share your side, your perspective, what you think should be done and why you think it should be done and what you're feeling. And they listen to you in the same way, and then they affirm you. Now you're not enemies. You still disagree, but you're not enemies. You're not fighting. You're not trying to convince them that you're right and they're wrong. And then you can say, honey, how can we solve the problem? And you look for a solution. And there's 3 basic ways you can solve a solution. One is that one of you will decide to go to the other side. And you just say, honey, I think in this situation, I think I'm going to agree with you. And let's just do what you have in mind. Yeah, you can honestly say that sometimes, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes we have to find something in the middle. And so I give a little, you give a little, and we meet in the middle. For example, I remember during this pandemic, a couple was discussing about something that his mother had proposed. She had asked if the 2 children could come to their house and spend a weekend. And the husband was thinking, boy, this is a good idea because my wife is stressed out. She will really like the opportunity of having the kids at somebody else's house for a couple of days. So he shared it with her. But that was not what she thought. She said, oh, honey, no, I don't want the kids over there with them. I mean, they could get COVID-19. No, I want to keep the kids here. So they obviously had a conflict. But they sat down and listened to each other. She shared her perspective, and he affirmed, I can see, honey, why you'd feel that way. That makes sense, you know. And she heard his perspective, that he, you know, wanted to give her relief. He was thinking about her. And she heard his perspective and said, honey, I appreciate that. I really do. But I just don't think I can do that. And so he said, okay, then let's try to solve it. So they sat there and talked. And finally, he came up with this idea. Honey, what if I take the kids on a hike all day Saturday? Just be the kids and me, all day hike. And we'll pack a picnic lunch and we'll just have a great time. Oh, she said, and give me the whole day free? Yeah, I can go for that, she said. So they found a solution, you know, to the conflict. All solutions have a conflict. We don't always find them because we're not always listening and affirming the other person. Well, I hope those 5 ideas will help you. Whether you are in a good marriage, a healthy marriage, or whether you're struggling, you apply those 5 things, I think you're going to find your marriage is going to be growing. Listen, marriages either grow or they regress. They never stand still. So if you choose an attitude of growth, we want to have a better marriage, and I'm going to take the initiative. Now, I want to just say this in closing. Many times you'll share one of these ideas with your spouse and try to get them to go along with you in the idea, and they'll say, I don't want to have anything to do with that. That's okay. They are where they are. What about you doing it? So you call the truce for your word. You're not going to throw any more bombs. You start giving compliments. You decide, I'm going to apologize for my failures. You start speaking their love language. You're going to create a different atmosphere in that home, and I can tell you there's a good chance your spouse is going to begin to respond in a positive way. So I hope you'll find this helpful, and I hope if you don't know your spouse's love language, you'll check it out, 5lovelanguages.com. It's a free quiz, and hope that you'll continue growing, not only in your marriage, but if you have children, in your parent-child relationships and in your relationships with friends at work or otherwise. Good to be with you.